Good evening. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to another BW Dialogue. Today we are talking to an author who's worked in the industry, who's now an educator, and who's built brands, whether it's in the FMCG space or in the liquor space. Let me welcome Mr. Rajesh Srivastava, who's a professor, who's an educator, who's an author. Before he did all that, he spent almost 4 decades in the corporate world. Welcome, Mr. Srivastava. Congratulations on your new book, the 10 life-changing skills. We'll come to that, but let me ask you first, how have been the last 27 months for you, both personally and professionally?
Thank you, Dr. Batra, for inviting me. It's an honor and privilege to be on this platform. The last 27 months for me personally has been very, very nice for the following reason. Reason number one, it gave me time to write my second book, which we are discussing today. The second thing that it taught me was a very important lesson in life. Just before COVID struck India, my first book, The New Rules of Business, was released in January 20th in Mumbai. And a few months later, COVID struck. And as you know, to sell books, there are 3 channels available. One is city bookstores, airport, and e-commerce. Out of these 3, 2 shut down. And there was only one channel that was available, that was e-commerce. And what did I do? Like a corporate person, I was determined, no matter what restrictions come, I have to get this book into the hands of people and get people to read it. So when the door closes, a window opens. So what did I do? I quickly adapted myself to the new technology that became available, which is Zoom, which is Team. And believe me, Dr. Batra, this particular window became not just a door, but it became a huge door for me. Courtesy that I was able to reach out to my students right across the world. I was able to do Thai programs without traveling. And this taught me an important lesson. Hurdles will come in your life of the kind which humankind has not seen. But our reason should not be, our desire should not be to focus on the problem or what has been taken away, but to look at that small opportunity. Now, this was the second big lesson I learned in life. And as a result, today I feel no matter what circumstances I face, I think I will always come out trumps. That is the second thing. Third thing that happened to me was also another thing. Because travel was not possible, therefore many companies in the beginning were organizing, let's say, training program for their clients, for their employees. And I was very familiar with it. And I was very dexterous in technology. As a result, Dr. Batra, I got many companies, who sought me out. So to sum up, it was good for me. I wrote my second book. I discovered that when door closed, window open, but convert that window into the next door for you. So now I have 2 doors through which I can sell my second book. And third is, opportunities always come disguised as problem. But the problem with us is we only look at the problem and let the opportunity go by. So I converted a problem into an opportunity for me.
I believe what you say, and my own lessons out of COVID are never say never. This is not possible. Everything is possible. So don't have closed mind. The mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open. Second is recalibrate everything. Why do you do something? Ask why. And third is this shall too pass. So there's nothing. Everything is. We read in Gita. Everything is impermanent. Nothing's permanent. You're a great example, and the fact is, you looked at the positives of COVID while there were many negatives. Now, let me ask you, there are many books on communication. There are many books which are self-help books. Why another book? What is special about your book, and who is it targeted at?
Let's talk about why this book was written. So my son had, who's also a Penguin author, had posed a question to me when I told him I'm writing a book. He says, will your book add weight to the library or will it add knowledge to humankind? I pondered over it and I told him it will add knowledge to humankind. And this is the pitch I gave him. Now, you look at all books, you may be referring to IQ books, you may be referring to social skill books or communication book. This book is not about that. EQ, social skills, communication skills. These are skills which make you more effective as a human being. These are skills which make you more likable, particularly emotional intelligence. They make you appear more warm. So, Dr. Batra, just go back. Till now, the world has seen 3 industrial revolutions. All these skills are applicable there. EQ, social skills, communication skills. But now we are in the midst of the industry 4.0, which is the 4th industrial revolution. And 4th industrial revolution is very different than the first 3 IR. And here is how they are different. In the first 3 IR, what was mandated was that the boss decided and rest of us had to follow what he told us to do. We were never expected to question him. We were expected to follow orders and just follow time-tested, well-laid out systems and process. That is what the first 3 IR were about. Now we are in industry 4.0 or 4 IR is here. This 4 IR is different. If the first 3 IRs produced blue collar and white collar jobs, which as I mentioned to you, expected us to follow orders, not question authority, and follow the time-tested systems and process. Industry 4.0 is producing, according to me, green collar jobs. Green collar jobs require people to think, reflect, and act. Now, if 4 industrial revolution requires people to think, reflect, and act, then they need to have skills to think, reflect, and act. This book will introduce readers to 10 skills which will help them think, reflect, and act in whatever profession they are in. Technically speaking, these 10 life-changing skills are also identified or recommended by World Economic Forum and to some extent by McKinsey also. What are these 10 skills? Creativity, innovation, critical thinking, framing the right question, smart problem solving, lifelong learning, storytelling, influencing without authority, humaneness, and entrepreneurial spirit. These are, so to speak, soft skills. Why are they important? The second reason is industry 4.0 is set in, but it is not entirely clear what form and shape it will take. So World Economic Forum has mandated or has put out a guidance which says that if industry 4.0 is not completely formed, so how do you prepare for an industry that's not completely formed? Possess these 10 skills. Then no matter what form and shape industry 4.0 will take, you will be well equipped to actually win in that industry 4.0 scenario or milieu.
Mr. Srivastava, now let me ask you, out of these 10 skills, which is, I know the chapters in the book are like children, all skills are important. Life is about balance and holisticness. But if you had to say post-COVID, which are the 2 skills which are the most important? Let me make it easier. I'm not asking you one. I'm asking you 2 skills which you believe are the most important. And in the end, you talk about, human values. Compassion, the ability to forgive. People are so driven these days that human values are sometimes seldom part of our thinking or a being. People are so focused on getting ahead and being selfish, right? Of course, COVID showed that there are lots of people who have done the right things and the world is full of humanity and people doing. So which are the 2 skills which are the most important?
So let me answer this and let me lean on IBM. IBM, just about a few years back, did a global study asking the CEOs across the 5 continents, what is it that keeps you awake? And most of the people, the CEOs said that what keeps us awake is this VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world. That keeps us awake. So the next question that was asked to these CEOs in the VUCA world is that if VUCA world keeps you awake, then what is that one magic thing if you had, you would have a peaceful night's sleep? And they said that if my people were innovative, then I would have a peaceful night's sleep. So, Dr. Batra, one of the most important skills that people should possess in 21st century industry 4.0 is innovation. The second skill that they need to possess, and I think is very, very important, the second skill is critical thinking. So these are the two most important skills that people should possess. The second question that you posed is about human value. I have covered that as skill number 9 and I have labeled it as humaneness. I will go the other way around and answer it. Industry 4.0, computer is playing a very important role. As you would be aware that when technology collides with any industry, the industry gets disrupted. Uber has disrupted taxi, Netflix has disrupted entertainment industry, Airbnb has disrupted hospitality industry. So technology is an enabler and it is disrupting every industry. With AI coming in, deep machine learning coming in, it is every likelihood there is a threat that computer are going to take more and more jobs. So what should be the response of human beings like me and you? We cannot fight computer on their strength, and their strength is something, if you look as human, we have two brains, left brain and right brain. Left brain is about rationality, right? And right brain is about creativity. So the thing that I mentioned here is that if we have to fight computer, we have to become more humane and get computer in our area where they will fail and we will win. If we don't do that and we continue to fight the computer with our left brain, we will lose because they can always do faster calculation than us. So answering that, yes, in 21st century, industry 4.0, if we have to win against computer, we got to be more humane. And what is more humaneness are some of the values that you mentioned. And also one more thing I would add, which is skill number 1 is creativity, right? And entrepreneurial spirit. So this is what my response to your query would be, Dr. Batra.
Now, let me ask my last question before I bring in my editorial colleague, Ms. Surabhi Srivastav, to take the next set of questions. If you had to predict 3 futuristic trends that have impact on the behavior and how we should interact, and they alter the skills that are needed, what would those be? For example, blockchain is the 5th industrial revolution. Blockchain is changing the world. It's technology. So what are some of the futuristic trends? I wouldn't call them predictions. We now know post-COVID that human beings are not good at predictions. If we knew, we would have predicted COVID, right? But none of us were able to predict it. So what are the future trends that are becoming mega trends? What are your predictions for the future?
So my prediction is that technology is not the end solution. It is just an enabler. Using technology, I believe the following things will happen. The first and foremost thing that will happen is that everything will become personalized. For example, today, if you take medicine, if I have a headache and you have a headache, the medicine is only innocent. It does not measure my intensity or your intensity, but we have to take the same mass medicine. So the thing that technology will do is that it will actually help us personalize each and every solution that they provide. That is the first thing that I foresee. Second thing that I foresee is that using data, what will happen is that we will become more predictive instead of reactive. So I will just give you an instance. Now, aircraft engine manufacturers, what are they saying to, let's say, buyers of their aircraft engines? They are saying that we will help your aircraft remain more in air because we will be able to predict when the engine is likely to fail and take preventive action so that it does not fail. So predictiveness will increase the efficiency. That is the second thing that I foresee happening. Third and most important thing that I see happening, which probably may amuse you, in times to come, there'll be two sets of people, useful people and useless people. Useful people will work, useless people will have a great time. And then you will say, then what will happen to useless people? Where will they earn? And you would have heard this new thing that is coming up, which is called universal basic income. So I think the world is moving towards universal basic income, and the world will get divided into two people, useful people, useless people. Useless people will get universal basic income, including useful people. And just to say that which people, which batch you join, useful or useless, will also depend on the skill set you have. So, Mr. Batra, any person who possesses the 10 life-changing skills I have will actually graduate to the useful bucket. And if he doesn't, then he's likely to in the useless bucket and get university.
Absolutely, I agree. I would attribute my success to, of course, I am a Hindu. I believe in prarabdha, preordained success, whatever. My parents' blessings, my love for books as a child, and my reading books now, and a lot of hard work and a lot of help from people like you. But I also believe that I possess some of the skills that you talk of. They're so important. The fact that we used to call them soft skills, they are the skills. Knowledge is important, but how to communicate that knowledge is very important. So clearly, if you look at people who have succeeded, communication, compassion, connection, these have played a big role. Only in the last 10 days, I've learned new things, because at every age you can learn something that you didn't know or have a reinforcement. So your book is not just for students, it is for professionals who are trying to learn new skills, because a leader is about these skills. Leadership is about this skill. Founders need to learn these skills. So your book has come at an opportune time when there is a focus on the culture of startups. How's the founder treating the employees or other co-founders, investors? It is very important for mid-level executives who can re-imbibe or freshly imbibe these skills or focus on developing them further. So I'm sure your book will be an important catalyst in making sure these skills become a part of one's style of leadership and being. We wish you luck. And at this point, I'd like to bring in Ms. Urvi Srivastav to take the next set of questions from the chapters in the book. Urvi, this seems like Mr. Srivastav and Ms. Srivastav. So we'll leave it at that and listen in.
Thank you so much, Dr. Batra, for the kind introduction. So I've been listening intently to the conversation that was going on, and some of the buzzwords were creativity and soft skills. Now, there's a common perception that people who have soft skills are inherently very creative. There are the intelligent people, and then there are the other batch of intelligent people, less appreciated, I would say, the creative batch. So can you give us a difference between how soft skills and creativity are not always synonymous?
Can I just say soft skill is about your body language, how you communicate. These are soft skills. Creativity is very different. Creativity, for example, let's talk about business. And there are enough number of examples of how creativity has changed the way in which me and you live. Let's take iPhone, right? It's an example of creativity. So what is creativity? Creativity in general is connecting two unconnected thought processes or two unconnected ideas. Let's go back to the time before iPhone was there. What did we have? We had a desktop, right, which sat on our desk, and we had a Nokia phone, right, which was used for communication. So desktop was connected to the internet. Nokia phone was used for communication. What did Steve Jobs do? He took these two very distinct things, a desktop computer and a Nokia, and he connected them in a very innovative way and said, I will come out with not a phone, but with a smartphone. A smartphone which has all the abilities of a PC, a desktop, and all the ability of a Nokia phone. So smartphone has what? Like a desktop, it helps us get connected to the internet. And like the Nokia phone, it gets us to communicate. So that is what is actually creativity. So there is a general, let's say, misunderstanding about what is creativity. Creativity, by and large, is taking two unconnected ideas and connecting them in new and unexpected way, the way Steve Jobs did. I can give you any number of examples how creativity has changed our life, but I thought that iPhone would be a great example, because I think not only has iPhone changed the way we live, but it has changed the way we interact with everybody and everything. The world has never been the same, and it is a great example of creativity.
So would you say that creativity is the most important soft skill we need now?
Urvi, it is like this. There is something called creativity and there's something called innovation. But the problem in the world is that many people consider creativity and innovation to be synonym. They're not synonym. Let me give you an idea. This smartphone that we are talking about, in 1960s, IBM had come out with the first smartphone in 1960s. In 1990s, just before the century began, or somewhere around the closing of this beginning of this century, Nokia, the market leader, had come out with a phone which could be operated with a single button, much like the iPhone, and it could tell you where the restaurant was. They were also creative, right? Then why did Nokia die? Nokia died because creativity is just coming up with an idea. What is innovation? Innovation is creativity multiplied by execution multiplied by profit. So IBM was creative. It came out with a smartphone-like device, but it did not convert it, execute it into a commercial product which made money. So it was not innovative. Same case with Nokia. It came out with a product, but did not execute it to come out with a commercial product which made money. So they were just creative. So Apple, if you go back, Steve Jobs was not only creative to connect unconnected ideas in unexpected ways, but more important, he executed it, brought that product to the market in a manner that it is profitable. So innovation is, if you take a mathematical equation, is creativity multiplied by execution multiplied by profit. But here's just one caveat. Is all innovation burdened with profit? Urvi, I come from a business background, and therefore business innovation is burdened with the concept of profit. Without profit, companies will not be interested. But social organizations are not burdened with profit. They can be creative and execute it without the burden of having to make profit.
Yes, you've spoken in a very business-like terms when you were elaborating with that equation. I could see the professor shining through the author for a couple of seconds. But having said that, let's talk in some more detail about your book. So you have divided all the 10 lessons and all the 10 skills, I would say, into segments, into 4 segments. So the first one speaks about higher level cognitive skills. So how did you decide to segment these skills in the way that you have? And which is the most important high level cognitive skill we need now?
Urvi, in this world, there's no creativity. Everything is there. You just have to reorganize information. And in this specific case, World Economic Forum for years has been warning the world that Industry 4.0 is upon us. It's not completely formed, as I was mentioned to Dr. Batra, but it is truly set in. Now, if the industry is set in and is not truly formed, then the jobs are not truly formed. Then how will you prepare for a job that is not truly formed? And that is where World Economic Forum has been issuing advisories and updating certain skills. These skills that I have mentioned are actually inspired from World Economic Forum. Second source, McKinsey and Company. McKinsey and Company have very categorically said about Industry 4.0 in which we are. They said, the consulting company said that some jobs will die, new jobs will be created, but all jobs will change. May I repeat it? McKinsey and Company have said some jobs will die, new jobs will be born, but all jobs will change. If that be the scenario, then how do you prepare for this world? And you prepare for this world by arming yourself with these 10 skills.
Right. But having said that, we've spoken so far about creativity, soft skills, and the like. But along with this, you have also spoken at length about framing the right question and the importance of critical thinking. So can you elaborate on how the book touches on these topics?
Let's start with critical thinking. Urvi, this has been this is what my research threw up. Critical thinking, most people know what is critical thinking, but they don't understand what is critical thinking. It is like If I ask you, do you know critical thinking? Most probably you will say yes, because critical and thinking are dictionary words. Because we are familiar, therefore we believe that we are familiar with the concept called critical thinking. That may not be true. So critical thinking basically means that we have, whenever we are faced with a challenge, we need to actually challenge tradition, challenge norms, and challenge assumptions. How has the world moved forward? The people who actually challenged tradition, norms, and assumptions are the one who came out and made the world better, and that is why the world has progressed. So critical thinking is basically about that. Now let me bring it down to something that all of us can relate with: challenging tradition. Let's come to cricket. I think in India, cricket is a religion. I'm going to speak about Virendra Sehwag, the most explosive cricketer, that this country has produced, or among the most explosive cricketer. He challenged a tradition. What was the tradition? The tradition was, in a single day, one day's play, double century could not be scored. It was very difficult. So what did he do? He challenged that tradition by doing a simple critical analysis. In test match, in a day, 90 overs is mandatory to be bowled. You have to bowl 90 overs. And he said that if out of 90 overs, let's say 10 overs are very good, I can't score. That leaves me with 80 overs. If in each over I score just 4 runs, or I hit 1 4, I've got 200 runs. Now, what did he do? He challenged the tradition that you can't score a double century in a day. Once he challenged it, then he did critical thinking to say, listen, 90 overs are to be bowled. If 10 overs are good and I can't score, in the remaining, let me just hit a 4 and I'm through. He did it. Now, Urvi, that is called critical thinking. I'll give you another example. You must have seen Dangal. Dangal is based on a real life story. The gentleman who trained his daughters to become wrestlers, what was his story? He wanted to win a medal for India, he could not. Then he said, if I have a son, I will make him win. And then he got 2 daughters, and he had given up all hopes. Till one day, some neighbors came to his house complaining that his daughters had beaten up their son. And that made him challenge a well-established norm that only men can be wrestlers. And when he challenged that tradition, then what happened? Rest is history, rest is Dangal. So critical thinking is very, 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 very important. Let's come to framing the right question. Urvi, the problem in our education system is that we are being trained that the teacher will give you a question, and as soon as you get question, don't question the question, just start answering. That's what we did. I mean, I'm old, so we had high school and all that. That also included, to large extent, the IITs and IIMs. Professor, not in all cases, but largely the question is given, and you have to just start answering without questioning the question. Now, that is not correct, because what did Einstein say? That if I had 1 hour to live, and in 1 hour if a problem was given to me and I had to solve it in 1 hour, and if my life depended on solving that problem in 1 hour, he said, I will spend 55 minutes in framing the right question. Once the right question is framed, the answer is obvious. This is Albert Einstein saying it. So Urvi, just understand, if Albert Einstein said that framing the right question is important because once you frame it, then the answer becomes obvious. The problem. So should we follow Einstein, or should we follow our system where the question is given to us? So let me just give you an example of how framing the right question, let's say, improve profitability of low cost airlines, but me and you, our life has become more costlier. So one of the low cost airlines founder, he narrated this incident to me. He said the first low cost airlines in India, he said we started the low cost, but no matter what we did, how many costs we reduced, we were still not profitable. Then I said, then what did you do? He said, if I reduced any more cost, then the aircraft will start falling on the ground. And I said, what did you do? He said, I did a very simple thing. I reframed the question. I said, how? He said, till now we have looked at cost. So I asked myself a question, how can we convert a cost to revenue? How can we convert a cost to revenue? So what was the cost? They were serving some light refreshment. It was a cost. He converted into a revenue by charging for it. Now, when you fly, Urvi, do you get anything free? No,
Not anymore.
not anymore. And then after that, he said, we didn't stop there. Then we looked at our assets which were not being sweated. Aisle seat. Today, I'm flying tomorrow, and when I go to check in, every single seat has a price over and above the ticket price I have paid, which was not the case, let's say 3 years back. By asking the question, how can I convert a cost into revenue? He became profitable. And now the next question is, how can I sweat my dead cost so that it becomes revenue? I'll see, etc., etc. So framing the right question can help you arrive at solutions and obvious solutions.
Sometimes we ignore what's right in front of us because it is so obvious to us. So I guess the devil is in the detail, as they say, and think out of the box, as the saying goes. So talking further about your books, one thing that caught my eye is this section called management skill, and the lone chapter inside it which says lifelong learning. Of course, we need management skills, and learning, as everybody knows, never really stops. But why has this chapter been under management skill as the sole chapter? Why would you say lifelong learning is the key to being a good manager or a good management person?
Urvi, first let me answer it. This idea was reinforced by a person the entire country respects. My first book, The New Rules of Business, I went to present it to Mr. Adi Godrej. Mr. Adi Godrej, being a gentleman, accepted the book and then said, oh, would you like to have tea? I said yes, because I wanted to spend time with him. While we were waiting for tea, I asked him a question. Mr. Godrej, can you share your life lesson for people like us? And he only said this, never stop learning. Now let's come to me and you. Why should we never stop learning? When I graduated from IIM Bangalore, we were taught certain principles of management, and they stood me in good stead for almost 2 decades. For example, let me give you this. Let me ask you a question. I was told that customer is God and always respect customer. Do you agree? In 21st century, Urvi, you should only respect customer? Customer is God?
I guess employees come first for the entrepreneur today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the old rule that I had learned in IIM Bangalore, that customer is God, is no longer true. If there are gods, there are 2 gods. And if there is first among equal, it is employees. Why? We are in an experience economy. In an experience economy, it is the employees who deliver or serve customers. If the employee is unhappy, he will make customers unhappy, and unhappy customers will not give you business. And when your company does not get business, the company shuts. Let me give you a second example. When I was studying in IIM Bangalore, I was categorically told leaders speak first. But what I discovered in the last 20 years, that as a leader, when I became a CEO and I expressed my opinion, and then I asked opinion of other members of my team, most of them would parrot a variation of what I had said. And I kept on hearing what I had said in various languages or various choice of words. I changed the rule. I spoke last. Now, lifelong learning is so important, because if you don't do lifelong learning, it is like you still use a rotary phone in an era of smartphone. You will still communicate, but you would be inefficient. So the point is, in 21st century, knowledge comes with a expiry date. Why? Because rate of change that is happening in the industry is so fast that new learnings are coming. Say, for example, let me give you an example from your life. When you were small, in your home, Nescafe came as a powder, and your mother made coffee and gave it to you. Today, you, when you were studying, maybe went to a canteen or to any of these places and you had coffee, which was finished coffee, where they sold coffee as a service. Today, coffee is neither sold as a product nor as a service, but Starbucks sells it as an experience. And that is why it is one of the most profitable companies. Now, Urvi, if you did not upgrade your knowledge from product to service to experience, then how will you create Starbucks? Bottom line, in Industry 4.0, knowledge comes with an expiry date. If you don't update your knowledge, then you will be using expired knowledge and your career will be also in some degree of discomfort.
That's very true. In fact, you explained it very well with the relevant examples for all of us regarding the Starbucks case study, so to say. So with that, let's talk ahead about the social skills that you have elaborated on in your book. You have said that some of the most important skills in this domain is storytelling and influence without authority. So what exactly is storytelling? Is it something that the customer can connect to so that they can relate to the brand? Is it something like that? Or is it just the general ability of a person to communicate and frame a narrative as they're doing it? And what about influence without authority? It has got more to do with how you get along with your colleagues and peers. And can you elaborate from your end how you have portrayed these issues in the book?
So let's start with storytelling. And Urvi, I'll take an example from our day-to-day life. When people get married, they buy an engagement ring. An engagement ring is available at all jewelry stores. By and large, it's a commodity. And most of the engagement ring will, you know, the price range in which they will sell. Then came Mosier Cartier. Mosier Cartier, the French fashion designer, he looked at the engagement ring and said, I don't want to sell an engagement ring. I want to sell emotion. So what did he do? He took three rings made of gold in three different colors, white, pink, and yellow. And he intertwined those three rings in an eternal embrace. Those three rings of gold in three different colors, white, pink, and yellow, were intertwined in an eternal embrace. And what did Mosier Cartier say about these three rings intertwined in an eternal embrace of three different colors? He says white stands for fidelity, pink stands for love, and yellow stands for friendship. Now, when a gentleman was told that this engagement ring has three stories, it is about love, fidelity, and friendship forever. Now, was he buying a ring, or was it just the ring that he was paying for, or was his emotions, let's say, bought to for, or was he emotionally excited? Then when he went,
yes,
emotion. And then when he went and gave the ring to his lady love and said, here, I actually give you this ring with a firm belief that our love will be pure, it will be in an eternal embrace, and it will be forever, and our friendship will endure time. Now, is this lady receiving an engagement ring, or is her emotions overflowing?
of course, it's the emotional, like what they say, tugging at the heartstrings in common.
So now what did Mosier Cartier do? He did not sell you a ring, he sold you a story which touched your heart. And because it touched your heart, then what happened? You no longer looked at the price, you just went and bought it, because you were not buying a ring, you were buying emotions. And that is the power of storytelling. Let me just give you another example. In 1990s, somewhere around say 15-20 years back, a study was done which is called the significant object study. From eBay, trinkets were picked up randomly. The total price for which they were bought, about 125 about say 20 trinkets, was $125. $125, 20 trinkets bought. Because it was an experiment, storytellers were brought in, and a story associate was associated with each of those trinkets. Now that same trinket was put on eBay and along with the story. Guess what? It sold and made a profit of almost 3,000%. What is the lesson? The lesson is stories make product more valuable. So storytelling is not just about narration. It is about touching your heart, touching your emotion. And once your heart, which is the metaphorical elephant, gets excited, then your rational mind takes a backseat and your heart rules. So storytelling is actually about touching your heart so that your rational thinking gets suspended and your heart rules, as is the case of an engagement ring. And storytelling is the most easiest and the most powerful way of putting ideas in the world. Storytelling is the easiest way of putting the most powerful ideas in the world. So it is not just about the engagement ring, it's about ideas, right? So that is about storytelling. So if you have an idea, put it in a story form. Why? Why is it so powerful? Urvi, if you go back in time, you will remember that printing press is of recent origin. Writing is of recent origin. Thousands of years that human beings have been in existence, how did we transfer knowledge? We transferred knowledge through the oral medium of hymns, prayers, songs. So our brain for, for thousands of years has been conditioned to remember, retell, and get inspired by stories. So we listen, remember, and retell stories better than data and facts. Data and fact is of recent origin. So please channelize the power of storytelling. That's the first part of your question. Second is influence without authority. Now, what is happening in 21st century? Or we will go back to families, right? I have a son. Today, and my son is say 30 years old. So even when he was 25, how much power did I have over him? I think none. Meaning, Urvi, I mean, how much power do your parents have over you?
Well, I'm happily married now, so none.
No, even I'm talking about the time when you were not married. So parents
Hmm.
have very little power. Take me, what power do I have over you? Nothing. Or over Dr. Batra. But if I can cultivate a skill that I can influence you, right, without having authority, then I would have won a major battle in this world. Why in 21st century, unlike in previous, industrial revolution 1, 2, and 3, there was a boss and there was a hierarchy. It was the command, command. There was a commander and everybody else were soldiers. He gave you the command and everybody followed. But come to industry 4.0, here the concept of boss is moving away. Everybody is a leader. And today, because of job abundance, you scream at an employee, he goes away, right? So how do you inspire your employees to stay with you and give their best is actually called influence without authority. So it's a very, very important skill.
Yeah, so let's just leap forward into the final stage of the book, which is emotional skills. So EQ has been a buzzword, and some people may even argue that it is more important than IQ in today's day and age. So can you elaborate on what concepts you touch upon this section for us?
Well, let's start with EQ. Emotional intelligence will make you a more warmer person and a more likable person, but that is it. It makes you more warmer and more likable. That's it. Let's come to IQ. As I was mentioning to Dr. Batra, IQ basically is your left side of the brain, which is the rational part, which is where all the calculation and rationality takes place. Now, if you take IQ and we do calculation, computer can do calculation a zillion times faster than us. So if you say I have IQ, then in 21st century, you may not have a competitive advantage because computers, technology is taking over the world. Now let's come to EQ and IQ. Do you just want to be a likable guy with a skill in which computer is better? Will you have any competitive advantage? So the answer
Certainly not.
is maybe,
Yes.
maybe no. Then what do you need to do? As we discussed in the earlier part of our conversation, this is Industry 4.0. EQ is important. It was important in the first 3 IRs and including Industry 4.0 or 4 IR. It is important, but it's not the skill. It is just a skill, and which I have covered under humaneness, right? How to be likable, how to be a warm person. IQ. If you boast you have a high IQ, you may do faster calculation or do better calculus solving, but computers can do it better. So just having that will not help you. You need to develop certain skills which human beings are good at and computers are not good at. One of them is being more humane. What is more humane? A computer will not have empathy and compassion, whereas me and you can have empathy and compassion. So if we develop those skills, which computers are bad at, and which is our area of strength, then we are likely to not only win, but endure in times to come.
Okay, so we've spoken at length about all the qualities that a person should have, which your book highlights. But can you tell us and our viewers, how can one practice to develop these qualities in day-to-day life? Because it is not something that is necessarily taught to us in books. As we discussed earlier, we learn how to develop IQ points, but not necessarily EQ points. So can you tell us how an individual can develop the set of qualities that we've explored throughout the discussion?
It will be very, very simple. First of all, you need to be conscious that you need to develop the skill, and you need to be conscious as if your life depends on it. And believe me, a World Economic Forum and McKinsey says these are important skills to have for Industry 4.0, and absence of them can put us at a disadvantage. Therefore, it is imperative for us to believe, we got to work on them as if our life depends on it. So this is the first mindset we got to have. The second thing that we need to have is that if you need to develop this, these skills cannot be sat down and developed. There is an opportunity at every nook and corner for you to develop this. You can start with anywhere. Let's take, for example, I'm just saying, let's take the dress that you're wearing. I could ask, is this the business world house color, which is probably red? So should you not be wearing a red dress? Right? Now, what have I done? I have challenged, I've become curious. Right? There's an opportunity everywhere. For example, take your background. If this is BW dialogue, then should there be a different background or the same background? That's being creative, that is being critical thinker. Right? There's an opportunity everywhere. And what do we have to do? Look at these opportunities with curiosity, with a keen sense of trying to challenge these things. And if we start doing that, then we will acquire these 10 skills. That's one. The second thing is, of course, if you read my book, then it will give you great pointers of what each of these skills are. Once you're directed in the right direction and you are curious and work as if your life depends on acquiring them, then you will acquire them at a faster pace. So bottom line, first, there has to be an innate desire in you to acquire these skills. There are opportunities everywhere for you to actually practice this. But before you practice this, you need to know what these skills are. And this book will introduce you to what these skills are. And once you know the skill, wherever you go, you will find an opportunity to practice. And the more you practice, it will become your muscle memory. And once it becomes your muscle memory, then in Industry 4.0, no matter what situation comes, these 10 skills will come to your rescue and you will automatically come out with hopefully the best response to that situation.
Okay, my final question for you is that when we talk about developing these qualities, what do people get wrong in the process? Because as we discussed earlier, people tend to confuse creativity with innovation. So there are a lot of misconceptions and misinformation on these factors out there. So what do people commonly get wrong, and what has your experience been while you were writing this book?
Urvi, the thing we just touched upon. So I will give you an example. I was going to do a workshop for Reliance Industries in Madhya Pradesh. As a part of that exercise, I had to travel from Raipur into the interiors. When I traveled into the interiors, I had to go through the jungle of Madhya Pradesh. While I was going, it started raining. So I asked the driver, what's happening? He said, it's raining. I said, why is it raining? He says, I don't know. Now, this is the problem with most of us. The driver knew it is raining, but he did not understand why it is raining. Now, this happens to most of us. Because we are familiar with creativity, innovation, critical thinking, they are dictionary words, we actually get a notion that we understand. We know it. Of course, we know what is creativity, but we don't understand what is creativity. So one of the things is that people just have a superficial understanding, but they don't have an in-depth understanding. That is the first thing that I found. Second thing, much to my amazement, what I found was that critical thinking as a concept is least understood. Everybody has their own interpretation of what is creativity, what is critical thinking. And if everybody has their own definition of what is critical thinking, then there is a bit of a problem, because that's not true. There is a structured way of what critical thinking is and what it is comprising of. So that's the second thing. Third thing, which is very important for me, is right from the time we went to KG till till we graduated, and when we joined the job, we were always given questions by the boss to answer, and like in your case, by you to answer, and in school by teachers to answer. We don't have the ability to question or frame the right question. So if the boss has got it wrong, he's framed the wrong question, we will arrive at the wrong solution, and then the company goes down. I will give you an example. I am going to do a training program on Monday. The company gave me, this is what they want me to do. I said, this is what you want me to do for the participants. But let me go and ask the participants what their problem is. And guess what? The problem identified by the boss, the question that they had given me to answer in the workshop, is very different than the question the employees have. Now, if I answer the boss's question, the employees would have got no answer. So this is the third thing that I discovered. Then storytelling. People believe that storytelling is Mahabharata and Ramayana, and it is literally, taking people for a ride. It is not Ramayana, it is not Mahabharata. There is a science behind it, and I explained to you that we are in DNA programmed to listen, remember, retell, and be inspired by stories. But people feel, no, this is misleading people. That's the other thing then influence without authority. People feel that they can only have control over people because of the chair they hold. Not true. Not true at all. Then comes humaneness. Everybody today, wants to be unhuman. They want to do everything which computers are good at. Take coding. Coding, computers are going to do in the next 3-4 years. Humanness, what are we good at, and if we are good at it and computers aren't good, then we will preserve, and endure. Now, these are the things that came to me. But more importantly was the way in which I had explained to Dr. Batra that the first 3 industrial revolution produced white and blue collar jobs. These jobs expected us to follow instruction, not question authority, and just be slave to time-tested systems and process. In industry 4.0, which is not completely formed, jobs are not formed. So how will you prepare for it? If you don't have these 10 skills, it is then, going blindfold. It is like you're driving an aircraft and you don't have any of those dials in front of you and you have a band on your eyes. It's going to be a risky way to fly into industry 4.0. So those were some of my reasons for writing this book.
Sometimes it is good to know what we get wrong so that we don't do it, and by default we'll end up doing the right thing. So getting the wrong factors out is equally important, which is also why I posed this question to you. So with that, can you just tell us about how we can access your book? And I believe there is a book signing event also that is coming up next week. So can you tell us about that? And if anybody wants to get their copy signed personally by you?
Personally signed copies, my email is there. So personal signed copy, I will just come to a bit later. Yes, the book is available at all leading bookstores. at the airports. And lastly, it is available on e-commerce platform, which is Amazon, Flipkart. So please, you can get it from there. As far as personal signed copies are concerned, what you can do is at the email address that Urvi has, if you send her a mail, she can contact me and I will make sure whichever way you get a personalized signed copy.
Okay, that's great. So with that, let's wind up our discussion. And it was really nice going in depth about the book that you have recently written. And it is, of course, extremely relevant for everybody, students, working professionals, or anybody in general who wants to get ahead in life, personally and professionally. So thank you so much, Mr. Srivastav, for joining us today. And it was great talking to you.
So I will end with Dr. Batra's word. Ms. Srivastava, it was a pleasure speaking to you. And I hope people read it because they are certainly, I mean, it's written in a storytelling format. It is illustrated with live examples with which readers can associate. And this is a tested content. The reason why it is tested is a very simple thing, that I have practiced this among multinational companies for about 7 years. And it has resonated with them, and they believe that knowing these skills has helped them perform better. Now, if they can perform their job better, then I'm sure any reader will also benefit out of reading it. It's curated content and whose time has come. Thank you so much, Urvi, for this opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Batra, for this opportunity. Thank you, viewers, for viewing this, because you have given me the most important 21st century currency, your time and your attention. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and have a good evening ahead.
Thank you, Urvi, and thank you, Dr. Batra, for inviting me on this platform. It has been an honor.